What is going on, you guys? Alex Chasen back here with a brand new video, and today we are 25% through the NBA season. It's crazy. It feels like the season just started, but we are already a quarter of the way through the regular season. If you do the math, 25% of 82 is 20.5. So we're right around that 20 to 22 game mark for pretty much every NBA team. So today, I want to give my NBA award predictions, or not even predictions, just where I think it is right now so far this year. I did my prediction video about 2 months ago where I predicted every single award, and I was like, let's do this for 25% through the season, 50% of the season, and then 75% of the year, and then my final predictions at the end of the year. So basically every quarter of the season, I'll be making one of these videos, and let's jump right into it, starting off with Clutch Player of the Year. Back in, I want to say September, early October, when I made my original prediction video, I said De'Aaron Fox. That very well could be possible, but the Kings aren't really amazing right now. I want to pick a player that is on a more competitive team, and maybe even not super competitive, but he's the everything of that team, Nikola Jokic. The Denver Nuggets would be absolutely nothing right now. They'd probably be the 11th, 12th, 13th seed in the West. That might even be a little bit nice to say they'd be the 10th seed. I don't even think they'd be a play-in team without Jokic. Jokic is this team's everything. We'll talk about him later, but he's definitely in the conversation for Clutch Player of the Year. And then two guys on the Cavaliers, Darius Garland and Donovan Spida Mitchell. We have seen both Darius Garland and Donovan Mitchell thrive in clutch moments so far this year. Most recently, Spida Mitchell scores 11 straight points to bring the Cavaliers over the Boston Celtics, and that was the battle for the number one seed. If the Celtics won, they would have been the first seed in the East. If the Cavs won, they would have stayed the first seed in the East. Obviously, the season is young, so not like it matters. It could fluctuate all the time, but it was a huge test for both sides, and Donovan Mitchell clutched up, scored 11 straight points, carried them over the Celtics. But that's a fake award. I mean, it's an award, but I don't really care. Let's get into the real meat and potatoes of the NBA awards. Sixth man of the year. There is no one else it should be, as of right now, than Peyton Pritchard. This man is averaging 16 points per game, 3 rebounds, 3 assists. But who cares about the rebounds and assists? That's not his job. His job is to be a bucket off the bench for this Boston Celtics team, and he has been everything and more of that. Shooting 50% from the field almost, shooting 43% from 3. His last 4 games, he's scored 20, 29, 24, and then 25 points. Shooting the ball crazy efficient. 60% from 3, 63% from 3, 30% from 3, not great, but then back to 41% from 3. This man is killing it. Peyton Pritchard. Whoo! Yes, I'm a Boston Celtics fan, but even if you're not a Celtics fan, which I'm assuming many of you aren't, you have to respect what PP is doing on the court. Peyton Pritchard absolutely has to be at the top of the list for Sixth Man of the Year. There's a few names I'll listen to. Karis LeVert on the Cavs, obviously another great team in the East. He has been playing great ball off the bench. And then Amen Thompson, not the greatest guy behind the arc, but he's been getting to the rack, averaging around 11 points per game for a really good Houston Rockets team. I'll give him a little bit of conversation as well. But it absolutely, top of the list, has to be Peyton Pritchard so far this year. Before we jump into most improved player, I want to go back to sixth man for a second. I forgot to mention who I predicted before the season started. I said Dante DiVincenzo, but in my defense, he was still on the Knicks. That trade did not go down yet. He was still a member of the Knicks, so if he was still in New York, I think it could have been a possibility. Now that he's in Minnesota, competing for the ball a lot more, especially off the bench with Naz Reid, not looking great. So I did say Dante DiVincenzo. I rather see Peyton Pritchard win it. But yes, coming into most improved player, I said Jonathan Kuminga. I thought he would explode. Has not. We're going to go with LaMelo Ball. Many people are not talking about him. Sadly, he did just get injured. It doesn't seem too serious. He's going to be reevaluated soon. Hopefully he's back on the court. But this man has been on an absolute tear. He averaged 24 points per game last year. This year he's averaging 31 points per game, 7 assists, 5.5 rebounds, shooting 43% from the field, shooting 35% from three. LaMelo Ball needs to be talked about a lot more in MIP conversations. So I think as long as LaMelo Ball gets that 65 games or more minimum you have to play to be eligible for awards, he's got this in the bag. Because I think the Hornets are going to be around, slightly under 500, maybe around that 34 to 38, maybe 40 win mark. They're not going to be 500, but I think they'll be a little less than that. If he's playing like this, I think that's enough to warrant MIP conversations. The next two guys I want to talk about are both members of the Atlanta Hawks and both MIP eligible. Jalen Johnson. He could have won it last year, but he got hurt, didn't get those 65 games, so he became ineligible, but he's averaging 20 points per game, basically 10 rebounds. I'm going to give him the double-double. It's 9.8. He's averaging a double-double and 5.5 assists on 50% shooting and around 37% from three. Last season, he averaged around 16 points per game. That's up to 20 points per game this year. The reason why last year he could have won it is because 2 years ago, he averaged around 5.5 points per game, and he brought that up to 16 points per game. So only if he played enough games, he definitely could have got that last year. Who won it last year? It was Tyrese Maxey, definitely well warranted for him. But I think if Jalen Johnson played enough games, that could have been his award. Now, will the jump from 16 to 20 be enough? I think so, because he's also averaging almost 10 rebounds a game as well. He is turning into an NBA star, and a quiet NBA star, because no one talks about the Atlanta Hawks. They just talk about Trae Young or Rishai because he's a rookie. No one else really gets talked about enough. And even Rishai doesn't really get a lot of talk because, it's in Atlanta, not like the biggest conversated city in the NBA, but those guys need to be talked about. The next guy in Atlanta that also needs to be talked about is Dyson Daniels. Last year, this man averaged 5 points per game. 5 points per game. Also 1 steal a game. This man is averaging 14 points per game and 3 steals a game. Not only has he brought his PPG up exponentially, his defense is nutty. He is a walking steal. He is a walking, maybe silent DPOY candidate. Probably not, because it's really hard for a guard to win this award. And there's also someone named Victor Wembanyama, who we'll talk about later. But either way, Dyson Daniels absolutely has to be in MIP conversations. These 3 guys are the top 3 for sure. But LaMelo Ball, he leads the way if he's healthy and gets those 65-plus games. Jumping over to Coach of the Year, I originally said Taylor Jenkins of the Memphis Grizzlies. That's very well possible. They're 14-8 right now, currently the 4th seed in the West. Definitely a possibility, but he's not one of the 3 names I want to talk about. The first guy who I have moved up to number 1 is Ime Udoka. The Houston Rockets are currently the 2nd seed in the West. They're 15-7, and they're playing amazing basketball. They're also 7-3 in their last 10. Ime Udoka has this team firing in all aspects of the game. They finished 500 last year. This year, taking a major leap, probably going to be around that 50-plus win mark. Ime Udoka has to be in this conversation. I made a video last week on Thanksgiving saying which each team should be thankful for. I didn't check the stats before this video, but last week they had no one averaging more than around 19 points per game. That was Jalen Green and Alperen Sengun, of course, they're 2 stars. No one averaged more than 19 points per game, but they had around 8 or 9 guys all averaging more than 10 points per game, all in double digits, all in double figures. They were averaging that many points, which leads to me saying Ime Udoka is running great rotations. He's running great lineups. He has these guys buying in, and they're playing great ball. Of course, the Rockets have good talent, but it's also due to Ime Udoka and his coaching staff coaching amazing. So shout out to Ime. He's number 1 in my book. As a Celtics fan, I'm not mad he's gone. I think it's worked out great with Coach Joe Mazzulla. Mazzulla ball is awesome, but Ime Udoka is definitely a great coach, and I'm happy for him, and hopefully this continues to grow, and he'll definitely be a Coach of the Year candidate. Next up is Kenny Atkinson. When you're the best team in the NBA, your name is going to be thrown in this hat. The Cavs are 19-3, best record in the league. I don't have too much to say. I will say, though, I've said this in prior videos, Darius Garland, I wanted to say Colin Sexton, but no, Darius Garland and Donovan Mitchell, there were rumors, could they coexist? Same thing for the big man. Could Jarrett Allen and Evan Mobley coexist? Last offseason and prior offseasons and prior seasons, that has been conversations. That's out the window. They are playing great ball together, and I'll point my hat down to, that's because of Kenny Atkinson's great coaching. So that's all I can say on that. But when you're the best team in the league, you're 100% going to be thrown in that conversation. And then the last guy here, who's not getting too much conversation because it is the Orlando Magic, but Jamal Mosley. They have been down Paolo Banchero for a bit now, and he's going to be out for another 3 or 4 weeks, maybe a little less. But either way, they are holding their own in the league. They're 15-8. They're the 3 seed in the East. Yes, that's because of Franz Wagner playing out of his mind in Paolo's absence, but that's also because of Jamal Mosley coaching amazing, running great rotations, having these guys buying in. You could have lost your main superstar in Paolo Banchero, and this team could have been like, all right, well, the first half of our season, the first quarter of our season is over because we don't have our number 1 star. They did the exact opposite. They are 8-2 in their last 10. They are playing great basketball. They have bought in to this team, no matter who's on the court. Shout out to Jamal Mosley. He absolutely needs to be on this list. Now let's talk about Rookie of the Year. I originally said Zach Edey. That's still a possibility, but maybe unlikely. Jared McCain is number 1 right now without a doubt. The 16th overall pick in this year's draft has to be number 1 in Rookie of the Year. He is really the only bright spot on this 76ers team so far this year. This is a 76ers organization that is 5-14, 3-7 in their last 10, the 14th seed in the East, one of the worst teams in the league. Not many bright spots so far this year in Philadelphia. I made a whole video on them. I've made a few actually in the last 3 weeks if you want to check those out. But Jared McCain is that bright spot. He is averaging 16 points per game, 2.5 assists, 2.5 rebounds, 45% from the field, 38% from 3. In his last 5 games, he's dropped 30, 18, 15, 7. It's okay, he's a rookie, he's going to have some light games, but then back up to 17. Jared McCain has been awesome, and he has to be number 1 in Rookie of the Year. Like, there's no questions about it. As of right now, Jared McCain is number 1. The next few guys I want to talk about is next up, Dalton Knecht. I mean, we thought he would come into the league and be good because, he was like a 5-year college basketball player. He was a super senior. He better be good. He's come into the league and he's shooting 41% from 3. Absolutely has to be in Rookie of the Year conversations. Averaging 12 points per game, 3.5 rebounds, 1 assist. But who cares about the playmaking? He's there to shoot threes, and he's making 41% of them on how many attempts? He's taking around 9 threes a game, and he's making around 4 of them. So yes, that would equal around 41%. Dalton Knecht absolutely could be the Rookie of the Year. Jared McCain, Dalton Knecht could go back and forth. But there's 2 more guys I want to talk about. Zach Edey is still on here. He's my 3rd option, averaging 11 points per game, 7 rebounds. Definitely doing what I thought he was going to do. I just thought he'd be closer to that, 13-10 mark. 11-7 is a little light. It's still great, but I thought since he would be implemented as this team starting center right away, he'd get a little closer. But the season is still young. He's still in my top 3. Then the other guy in Memphis, which none of us saw this coming, is Jalen Wells, averaging 12 points per game, 3.5 rebounds, 2 assists, shooting 45% from the field, 39% from 3. Jalen Wells has come into the league and has shocked everyone, and he's definitely top 5 in Rookie of the Year conversations, so shout out to him. All right, it's time to talk about the DPOY. I mean, do I really need to explain? It's Victor Wembanyama. 3.5 blocks a game. 3.5 blocks a game and 1.5 steals a game. Man, those steals are just an add-on. He could just get 3.5 or 4 blocks a game and I'd hand it to him. But those steals are just an extra add-on to his great defensive season. And they're a play-in team right now. They're 11-10. They started to heat up. They're 6-4 in their last 10. They're playing pretty good ball. It's going to be Victor Wembanyama's award 100%. But I want to talk about 2 other guys who definitely could be in this conversation. We talked about him prior, but Dyson Daniels, he's averaging around 3.5 steals a game, which is utterly insane. And also 1 block. I mean, he's playing great defense all around the court with 3 steals, 1 block a game. But it's just so hard for a guard to win it. It's been Gary Payton and Marcus Smart. But other than that, we've never seen a guard win the award, so it's just going to be kind of hard for Dyson Daniels to crack in there. But hey, crazy things have happened. Dyson Daniels is playing a great defensive season. The Hawks are 11-11 right now, 6th seed in the East. They're out of the play-in. They're a playoff team, so crazier things have happened. So let's see how this season plays out. The next guy I want to talk about is Evan Mobley. He's averaging, 1 block a game, 1 steal a game, and when you're the top seed in the East, eyes are going to be on you. That means voting eyes are going to be on you. So although maybe he's not better than Wembanyama, better than Dyson Daniels, If they finish with some great record, they're still the best seed in the entire NBA. There could be votes that head Evan Mobley's way. But at the end of the day, I think we know where it's most likely going, and that's Wemby. All right, it's MVP time, and number one right now, and this may shock some people, it's Giannis Antetokounmpo, and here's why. Obviously, the Bucks started terrible. They were down there with the 76ers, the Wizards. They were bad. They were really bad, but they have clawed their way out. They've won 9 out of their last 10 games. They're on a 7-game winning streak, and if this keeps up and they continue to climb in the East and become what the Milwaukee Bucks can be, it's Giannis's award. Because if voters look at this, or if I'm looking at this, because we're talking about my opinion here, not the voters' opinion, if I look at this and we see where this season started and where it ended, assuming they continue to be this good and they continue to climb up the standings in the East, it's Giannis's award. He's averaging 32 points per game, 12 rebounds, 7 assists, shooting 61% from the field. Giannis is doing absolutely everything for this Bucks team. Of course, they got Dame. They got other obviously good pieces around Giannis. But Giannis has single-handedly carried them out of a treacherous start. They could have been the 76ers right now. They could have been 5-14. They could have been really bad. Their season was hanging on a really thin string. But Giannis clawed them out of this. 7 in a row, 9 out of their last 10. Currently 11-9, the 5th seed. Giannis is absolutely my number one right now. My number 2 at MVP, in my opinion, is Nikola Jokic. He could have been number 1 if the Bucks were still down bad. They were still, sucking like the 76ers or the Wizards. I throw a lot of shade at the 76ers, I'm sorry. As a Celtics fan, without thinking about it, I just throw shade at Philadelphia. But either way, if the Bucks were still down there and the Nuggets were at where they are, they're 11-8, the 8th seed. Obviously not great. They're not too high, but Jokic does everything for this team to even more of an extent than Giannis does, because Jokic has less help in my opinion. 30 points per game, 13 rebounds, 10 assists. That's a triple-double, if you didn't know. The man is averaging a triple-double, shooting 56% from the field, shooting 52% from 3. That's got to be a career high. Let me check that right now. That absolutely is a career high. He shot 35% from 3 last year. He's shooting 2 more attempts per game as well compared to last year, and he's making 50% of them. Jokic absolutely is neck and neck with Giannis, but for the reasons why I just explained, I give it to Giannis. But Jokic is right there because he has way less help in my opinion. Way less help. Jokic definitely is top 2 in MVP conversations. A couple other names I want to talk about is Jason Tatum, averaging 28 points per game, 9 rebounds, 5 assists. Obviously the second best team in the East. When the season ends, they could be the number 1 seed depending on what happens with the Cavaliers. JT has to be up there. And then like last year, the number 1 seed in the West, SGA, Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, averaging 30 points per game, 5.5 rebounds, 6.5 assists, shooting 50% from the field, 35% from 3. SGA is going to be in this conversation when the OKC Thunder are firing and they're the number 1 seed in the West. I just can't put them like 1 or 2 because of Jokic and Giannis's insane seasons. Although the Celtics and OKC are higher in the standings, Giannis and Jokic are just carrying their respective teams, so they absolutely have to be in the top 2. And before I forget, I originally predicted Luka Doncic. Not a terrible prediction. Maybe it's just kind of the easy way out at the time a few months ago because Luka is Luka. The Mavs look a lot better than where they started the year. They're 14-8, but Luka just hasn't been to the level of Giannis or Jokic, and I just don't think it's his award right now. I don't even think he's in the top 5, but of course Luka could absolutely start to blow it up a little bit more and move his way into that top 5. Anyways, hopefully you guys did enjoy today's video, and let me know down in the comments below who are your award winners 25% into the NBA season. I'll see you guys very soon, and like always, peace out.